Good evening, everybody. Alan Slaughter-Zinski for the Brevard Sports Network. Now, you see on the bottom of your screen there, it says live from Jimmy Hula's. We are not, of course, but I am live in spirit from Jimmy Hula's. This gentleman, this coach, he was going to try to join us at Jimmy's, but Tuesday nights are a busy night for this head coach. And we'll catch Coach Tony Gulla from the Viera Hawks at Jimmy Hula's for the media days. We'll make sure he gets there for those. And Coach, let me bring Coach Tony Gulla on. And Coach, welcome back to Brevard Sports Network, and it's a pleasure to have you. I always enjoy my conversations with you, Coach. How have you been, Coach? Let's start there.
Thanks, Alan, for having me back. I've been fine. It was a fun school year. It was a great spring. And we're excited to get moving through the summer, but everything's been fine. Family's good. So hoping to stay healthy and have a few more years left in me.
No, I hear you, Coach. Of course, for those that don't know, Coach, you're a Massachusetts native, correct?
Yeah, correct. If you can't tell by the
I was going to say, for those
that might give me away.
For those sitting at home that have freshmen or sophomore going out for the team this year and are just kind of, catching this interview. Yes, he's from Massachusetts, and you combine my mid-Atlantic accent with his Massachusetts accent, and you may understand the interview or you may not. But Coach, let's start here. You played in a spring jamboree, correct? Who did you play against in that jamboree?
Yes, we did. We played a half against St. Cloud and a half against Leesburg.
How'd you guys fare in that first half against St. Cloud?
St. Cloud was a very good team, much improved over last year because we had the same format last year. They were a much improved team. We started out a little slow. We gave up 21 points pretty quickly on 3 big plays. We got some young guys on defense. It took them a little while to get acclimated. And we've done some new things defensively in the spring. And once we got over those adjustments, we settled down and played really well. Defensively, we ended up playing really well. After that, we only gave up a field goal in about a quarter and a half.
That's fantastic. And how'd that second game go for you?
Second game was Leesburg, and it was 14-3.
Okay.
We got a few younger kids in offensively, but offensively, we basically got Eric Nelson back, and we're doing the same stuff we did last year because he's a special kid running that offense. The big thing this year was, last spring we had 15 practices to get a completely new offense in. This year we had 15 practices to get a completely new defense in.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Brought in a guy named Charlie Washington who actually has some local ties. He was up in South Carolina. But he was a defense coordinator up at Flagler Palm Coast. He's going to be the DC moving forward. But we're going to take a lot of stuff that we did in the spring because Phil did some good stuff, a lot of stuff that we put in the spring and build off of that.
I got you. Now, Coach, let me ask you this. Let's start here. You had those 15 practices in the spring. I was really impressed with Eric Nelson last season. He's coming in this year. He's a rising senior. He threw for 1,100 yards last year. His stats are on the screen there, and he can get out there with his legs too. I mean, he had 720 plus yards rushing as well. You could really see last year when this offense started to click for Eric. Where is he with it now?
He is 15 pounds heavier, faster, and running the offense is as good as any triple option quarterback I've ever been associated with. And in 3 quarters, he had 140 yards rushing, 74 yards passing, and he rushed for 2 touchdowns. So he's picking up right where he left off. And that was with Jake Bubar at running back. Jake is Ryan's little brother who's a freshman. So
incredible. We go from Ryan to Jake, and if you know anything about the Bubars, you just know they hate to be taken to the ground. That's for sure. I was going to ask you about the running back situation, Coach, because it was impressive last year. When Bubar, of course, was asked to produce, he did, and you had Robbie Healy as well last year. Who else you got back there toting the rock for you?
At the fullback position, We have transfer Duke Butler came in, and he was the guy most of the time in the spring. Obviously, couldn't play in the spring game.
Right.
So him and Jake Ubar switched shared reps in the spring, and then Jake played the whole game, and the two halves. And then we got incoming freshman Derek Schmedeke. You know Derek from Pop Warner. So our
Wow.
running back situation looks very good.
Now, did I hear you say triple option, Coach?
Not that big. Well, we're the modern triple option.
Explain that. What is a modern triple option for those that don't know?
It's the same triple option they were running back in the 60s and 70s, except they're doing it out of, and we're doing it out of pistol. When I first started coaching, and I'm going to give you the date, in the mid 80s, I coached for a guy who was a wishbone coach.
Okay.
And we would go up to Army at the time. Army was running the wishbone, and they were obviously running it very good. So this was before there was YouTube videos and all that other stuff. So if you wanted to learn something, you had to go to a college to learn it, to understand it. So we would go twice a year, and we did that for about 4 years in a row up to West Point. And we got pretty good at running the wishbone. So when we had the quarterback transfer a couple of years ago, and Case left us, I said, what am I going to do? So we took our best athlete, put him at quarterback, and Eric's just been perfect with that ever since. So we're optioning one of those defensive linemen, and we're optioning an outside backer. So that's triple option.
Coach, you're entering your third season as the head coach. Obviously, you carried that interim tag that first year, and then last year, the official first year, they say. But this is your third year as the head coach of this football team. Listen, we know what happened year one. Last year, you lost your quarterback. How are you? I mean, are you able to go into this off season with, I know nothing's ever etched in stone, but my heart goes out to you for what you've had to endure the first 2 years as a head coach of a high school football program, for God's sakes. Tell me you're drama free going into the summer here.
First of all, don't feel sorry for me. Please. All right, but you might be the only guy in Brevard County that is sorry for me. But anyway, well, drama-free, no. Question-free, yes. I mean, we're replacing 7 starters on defense, 6 starters on offense. But we got some great kids to step in and take over those spots. And the really good thing about the last few years, regardless of the situation, I was always surrounded with great kids. The Hancocks, that whole group from last year, Cooper and Isaac, they were great kids, and they were able to teach the younger kids how to be leaders, and that makes it easy moving forward, because we have built-in leaders on our team right now that learned from those guys, and they did a really good job with that.
Coach, you've been coaching, like you said, you've been coaching since the mid to late 80s, right? And so you've been around this game a while. Let me ask you this: what? And we're not going to go back to the '80s, but what would you say? What would you say is different about you today than when you took over as the head coach of Viera? What's different about Tony Gulla as a coach now as opposed to 3 years ago?
Well, 3 years ago, I was just coaching a position, and I was happy with that. I think I've had head coaching. I've obviously had about 14 years of head coaching experience.
Right.
And what I forgot, not being a head coach, was all the other stuff that goes into it. The X's and O's is easy. I mean, I love practice. Practice is my 2 hours of sanctuary every day. I don't take my cell phone to practice. My wife, if she's sick, I tell her to call 911 because you can't get me in practice. But that's my sanctuary. 2 hours of practice and then game nights. But what I forgot about was all the other stuff that goes in it, the administrative stuff, the parent stuff, the booster stuff. I mean, that was all stuff that I forgot about. And, but in Viera, it's easy.
Yeah.
We got good parents. We got a great booster organization. And we got a great administration. So it's been an easy transition for me back to being a head coach.
Coach, it looks like you might be grooming a couple of former Hawks that I once broadcast as well to be future head coaches. Chris Murphy. Is Coop Davis still on the staff?
Yes, he is. Cooper Davis, class of 20,
yeah,
is coaching our edge rushers, and Chris Murphy is my associate head coach, and he's class of 19, and he's really helped me out with some of the administrative stuff. I have a former head coach, Clifton Nichols, who was on the staff. He's helped me out with all the technology stuff. He's a tech guy. He handles everything from spreadsheets to drone maintenance and operation and practice, headphones, huddle sideline. So those guys have really helped me. And I tell them all the time, I want to surround myself with people who know more than me. And that's what I was trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do with the staff I put together. We got a new defensive staff. I brought in three new guys to help out over there. So that's always been my thing.
I tell you, Coach, I was talking to Logan Halleck from Astronaut, and, Logan and a couple of other guys around the county, guys that are in their 30s, so to speak. And I posed this question to Logan. Look, I'm 55 years old. I get out there and coach. I'd be lost anymore with today's student athletes, with everything that's going on with the NIL, with colleges and I would be lost, Coach. How do guys like us? Is it by hiring guys like Chris Murphy? How do we keep up?
Well, having the young guys on staff is great because a kid will say something to me and say some term that I have no idea what the heck he's saying.
Right.
And Murph or Cooper will say, Coach, he meant this. And I'm like, okay, thank you. But I think keeping up with the NIL and all this recruiting stuff, it's part of what I had to do. And it's a different world right now than it was 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. We had a really good spring recruiting wise. Good. And those guys were really helpful too, because we talked a lot. When those guys come in, I pick their brain, A, about X's and O, but B about NIL stuff, and then C, the transfer portal.
Yeah.
The transfer portal is really, really hurting senior recruiting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is. And, guys aren't coming in anymore looking for seniors. And in a lot of cases, some of these schools aren't even looking for juniors, Coach. They're looking to see what you got in that 28, 27 class, and it's weird. I was talking to a college football coach the other day, and he told me, he said, if there's a senior that's not committed, God help him. And, I hate to hear those words, because 5, 10, 15 years ago, that certainly wasn't the case. You could go into your senior season with options abound and open, but that's not the case anymore look, 5 stars are going to get their pick of the litter, right? They always seem to do, but that's not even the case for 4 or 3 stars anymore. And so you're right. It is an entirely different world, and it's just interesting to see how the high school football world, especially in the state of Florida, navigates that, Coach.
Yeah, the days of 4-star kids going to Power 4 schools are over.
Yeah.
They're using those spots for portal kids. A 4-star kid has to end up going down to a group of 5 or a D2 school,
yep,
and then stay for a year or two and transfer. That's what the D2 guys are living with right now, too. I spoke with a bunch of those guys, and they're hoping to recruit the good kids for a year and maybe 2, and then they know they're going to lose them, and then they have to reload. It's just a different dynamic that we live in right now.
And I'll tell you what, who's going to benefit the most out of all of these rule changes, and that's JUCO football, Coach. With that not counting against your eligibility anymore, you could honestly play college football till you're 26 years old now if you wanted to. And that's just a strange thing to say, but I would say to college football fans, get used to hearing 25-year-old, 6th-year player, 7th-year player who spent 2 years at JUCO, 5th-year senior. If it doesn't count, well, why not take advantage of the system? You know what I mean?
And that little tidbit right there just for senior recruiting again. They're taking a kid coming out of JUCO 2 years with 4 years of eligibility left, it makes sense. Well, I'm going to take that kid and not a high school senior
Every
unless
day.
he's a 5-star. And well,
Yep.
we're Viera, and we don't have too many 5-stars. So
No, I hear you. Coach, here with Coach Tony Gulla. All right, let's go back to your guys, Coach. Obviously, you went into spring with a certain expectation level for what you wanted to see from your program and your guys on the field. When spring ended, when that final gun went off in the second half of that jamboree against Leesburg, what did you learn about your football team that you didn't know going into spring?
I was really happy where we were after this jamboree. We had some questions with all the new starters on how they would respond in game situations, because you can't simulate that in practice.
No.
We had a couple scrimmages. We had one officiated. And the competition was really tough. We have no two-way players. So competition got really heated in practice, but it's not the same as a game. How are the young kids going to handle the pressure of a game? And they responded really well. They started a little slow, but they responded really well. And that was the biggest thing.
Coach, it's in terms of, I'm going to ask you, and I hate putting you on the spot, but just off the top of your head, give me 2 or 3 guys. We talked about Eric Nelson and Boobar, but maybe some guys that stood out to you who made a name for themselves in your mind coming out of spring.
Sal Orlando, number one. All right, unequivocally, Sal Orlando. And not because he's one of my fellow Italians on the team, but Sal was the most inconsistent kid last year. He would have a couple great plays. You did the games.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't hear from him for a quarter.
Right.
He was phenomenal. And I don't have the stats in front of me. He had 3 sacks, and he was making tackles all over the place. He was pursuing from the backside. All the stuff he didn't do last year, he did in the spring. That was number one. Kobe Wallace stepped up big. We moved Kobe from left tackle to left guard, and he just improved tremendously from last season. Jonah Woodruff, another one, where he was a spot player for us last year. He stepped in and made some really big first down catches and had a couple nice runs. I mean, I can go on and on because we were really surprised at the young kids. Timmy Sederos, he had 3 big runs. 2 of them were on 4th down for first down. I could go on. There's more.
Sederos, man, is he like, I've seen Timmy play. I know what his capabilities are. I just love the speed of the Sederos kids. I mean, it's incredible. And I'll tell you something about Jonah Woodruff. Watching Jonah Woodruff play lacrosse this year, watching him go across. Jonah's not a big guy. You know what I mean? But watching him go across the middle, take hits, get up, score goals, I imagine that bodes well for the slot or the inside receiver position that he may be playing, Coach.
Well, he does two things really good for us. He plays the slot, and like I said, he had a few big catches, and he also is our pitch back when we're running triple option. And Jonah is the perfect pitch back in the wishbone. And I don't know if there's any young guys out there, but the older guys will remember, you can't go out of bounds when you catch the pitch. You are staying in bounds. We're keeping the clock moving, and Jonah just looks to run people over after he gets the pitch and gets to the sideline. So, I mean, he's perfect for what we're trying to do. Obviously, Eric's perfect for what we're trying to do too.
Coach, I know last year one of the things that hit you hard was the injury bug. Every year teams have to deal with it in, different ways. That you're limited. I mean, these high school staffs, Viera has a great training staff, and I know there's only so much you can do. But how is your health coming out of the spring?
We're completely healthy. Obviously, last year the big hit was Noah Rennis. We lost him the Rockledge game, and that hurt. So what it did for us, it helped us this year because his backup last year was Blake Thomas. Blake was the other inside linebacker with James Olson, and so it helped us because Blake got a ton of experience. But it hurt us because we struggled stopping the run last year. But right now we're healthy. We're healthy. I was lucky enough to hire a full-time strength and conditioning coach.
Nice.
And he's done a great job in the off season with a strength training program. And a big part of strength training is injury prevention. So we're coming out of spring healthy, moving into the summer. So
All right, here with Tony Gulla, the head football coach for the Viera Hawks. Coach, I can't help but say this. I was looking at your schedule, and I'm going to put it on the screen. Coach, I must say, it is one of the strangest schedules I think I've ever seen in high school football. Let me just get this on. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so we start off in a semblance of normalcy. You host Rockledge, you host Deltona, of course, and we'll get to that Palm Bay game in a minute. The kickoff classic, because that's a big one. Rockledge and Deltona. Coach, you go on the road for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight games, and then end the season with 3 at home. Any particular way, or is that just how it fell?
it kind of just how it fell. We had some scheduling issues. Couple teams dropped us, and a couple teams wanted to pick us up. We owed Titusville an away game because they came down to Viera 2 years in a row. And obviously Toho came down last year, and the way we had to schedule Cocoa and Astronaut was we had to go there this year. So that's why we ended up with 5. And I think it was either Cocoa or Astronaut that I had to switch the game, and they were gracious enough to switch the date. But the problem with switching the date, we had to play on the road. So it is what it is. I talked to Mrs. Gravis about it, and it saves me time lining fields for about 5 weeks. But
you're not kidding.
I know. But we're going to be road dogs for 5 weeks.
No, I hear it.
It's what it is.
And just for those that can't make some of these games, you will see Palm Bay, Rockledge, Deltona, Astronaut, Titusville, Cocoa Beach, Seabreeze, Melbourne, and Merritt Island, all on Brevard Sports Network next year. The only game we can't do, or the only 2 games we can't do, is we can't do Osceola and Toho. That kickoff classic game, Coach, is interesting in so many ways, simply because it's Kevin Mays, and we know Kevin's affiliation with the Viera football program. The funny part of it all is, Coach, is that the way that seniors and freshmen and it recycle. I don't know that there's anybody on your team that maybe even knew Coach Mays coached at Viera.
Murphy and Cooper Davis.
You're right. That's the only 2. There are 2 on your staff.
Correct.
So, yeah. Go ahead.
We went up to Baker County a couple years ago, and the kids don't remember the kids who are seniors now.
Yeah.
Don't remember who the head coach was. But yeah, I have a lot of respect for Coach Mays and what he did at Viera. And I'm sure he's going to do a really good job down at Palm Bay. He's assembled a great staff. So I think there's going to be a big improvement down there. And I'm glad it's the kickoff classic, because that's not a priority for us right now. Week 1 is our priority.
Absolutely. And knuckleheads like me, put enough storylines on the game to begin with, So the fact that it's a kickoff classic is probably a good thing for all of us involved.
Coach Mays might want to seek a little revenge, because I think we shocked the crap out of him a couple years ago when we went up to Baker County. And I was sitting next to Murphy the whole ride up saying, Murph, what the heck are we doing? We're driving 3 hours to come up here and get our butts kicked. Yeah. Okay.
You beat him twice up there.
I wasn't there the first time.
I got to tell you, no disrespect to Derek or anybody, right? But I got to be honest, both times Viera went up there and beat them. I mean, the one year you guys went up and beat them, they went all the way to the Final Four. And on the way back, I'm thinking, how the hell did that happen? But both games were the best games of the year Viera played.
Viera could be Coach Mays' kryptonite. I don't know.
Well, hopefully on August 15th, it still is for you, Coach.
We're gonna have fun. I'm looking to meet those guys. I mean, I worked with DeGory that when I was down at Palm Bay, and Mitch and Stu. But I'm looking to get down there again. It was fun last year when they came up for the kickoff classic, and I was hoping Mitch would reschedule the game for one more year, and I'm glad he did. So
yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah,
yes.
It'll be fun, Coach. As we get set to wrap up here on Brevard Sports Network, what would you going in? Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, workouts start next week, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so workouts start next week. Any 7-on-7 plans this summer coming up for you guys?
Right now, we don't have any, and I'll tell you why. I mean, we got kids going to church camps, cruises, vacations, Hawaii. It's Viera. So we didn't want to schedule any 7-on-7 stuff this year. Last year, we did a few. Not that we plan on not throwing the ball, but it's just logistically, it's a little tough for us this summer. I talked to the seniors and I talked to the captains, and they got college camps they're going to. It's a big recruiting summer for our seniors. So we didn't schedule anything.
All right, as we get set to come into that final Monday in July, what is it that you want the Viera faithful and those in the Brevard County high school football community to know about your program coming up for 2025? What should we know about them?
We're just going to put a well-disciplined, well-coached team on the field. And what we might lack in certain aspects of athleticism or whatever, we're going to be competitive. And that's our goal. We want to be competitive, be disciplined, and be well-coached. And if we can do that, that's all I can ask for.
No doubt. Coach Tony Gulla of the Viera Hawks, thank you so much for taking time out. Listen, Coach, have a great summer. Always great talking to you, and I look forward to being up in the press box in Palm Bay on August the 15th when the kickoff classic happens. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alan. I promise you I will be at Jimmy Hula's next time.
There you go. No doubt about it. All right. That is Coach Tony Gulla, and that wraps up tonight's portion of the spring football recaps brought to you by Jimmy Hula. So thanks to Tony Gulla and thanks to all of you for tuning in. One more quick look here at the Viera schedule. Palm Bay, Rockledge, and Deltona, 1-2-3 kickoff classic at Palm Bay. They will then travel to Astronaut and Titusville, then go to Toho. I fumble with the word too much, so we just call it Toho here. At Cocoa Beach, at Osceola, and then they will close out the season against Seabreeze, Melbourne, and Merritt Island. Again, just a 3-team district, Melbourne and Osceola. So that'll wrap it up. For head coach Tony Gulla, I'm Alan Slaughter-Zinski for the Brevard Sports Network.